Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Win with Heather Haven Wood. Welcome to the show. So I'm going to be interviewing today someone called Jamie Newman. Jamie, you're a trainer leader. How are you today?
I am fantastic. Actually, you know, I just lied. I like to be honest.
Yeah.
We're extremely overcast today. And for some reason that messes with my head. So I've got a bit of a headache, but I also have coffee, which helps the headache. So
Me too.
I'm golden.
Me too.
Nice.
Me too. I know. And what's really bad about this coffee cup, by the way, y'all can't see, it says Pain Care Physicians. It's actually I've gotten injections in my neck before. And so I look at this lovely Pain Care Physician coffee. And I'm like, it's so interesting. Pain Care coffee. Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes absolute sense. And anyway, so I'm honestly doing really well. But I didn't want to just give one of those.
Are you in Seattle? Are you in Seattle? Where are you? It's all dreary.
No, I'm in Calgary, Alberta.
Calgary. Oh my God, I love Calgary. That's kind of like Texas. I'm in Austin, Texas. If y'all listened to me before, Heather Havenwood, Calgary and Texas, like there's some connection there.
Yeah. Probably the oil and gas industry connects us
Something
a little bit too. Even like the industry. So yeah, there's a ton of people I know that go back and forth between Calgary and Texas. So.
I've heard that Calgary is a lot like Fort Worth, and it's very true. I've been there before. So if y'all wondering who in the heck am I talking to in Calgary, it's Jamie Newman. He's a leadership trainer, consultant, and coach, and is the founder of YourBestManager.com. Jamie provides training and resources specifically designed to help top performers become managers and first-time managers learn how to build and lead effective teams. He also hosts Your Best Manager podcast, which I have been on. And features interviews with leadership experts around with this question: who is your best manager and why? And so I've already been interviewed by you. You can go check him out at yourbestmanager.com and check out my interview or just all of his crazy stuff. Yourbestmanager.com. As Twitter is James D. Newman, as well as his Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Okay. So this is interesting. So I was just talking to this with my sister, that is about how I was actually taught this when I was a lot younger, 98, was like when a salesperson gets really good, they do the worst thing ever and they promote them to manager.
That never happens. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. And I learned at a young age that salespeople don't always make good managers. And vice versa. Good managers aren't always great at sales. So, one, I mean, you can't answer the question, why in the heck are they so stupid and do that? But, I mean, you can't answer that question. But, I mean, what's happening in today's world? Are they still doing that practice? And how are you maybe helping them transition?
Yeah, so it actually makes a lot of sense. It's not necessarily a bad decision. The problem is rampant just in general within management as a whole. Mm-hmm. It's just more noticed in salespeople because you take that top performer, you promote them, it immediately hurts your business because your top performer is no longer performing. But you're right, oftentimes they don't know how to manage. The issue though is no one knows how to manage, and most companies don't actually train leadership. So it's just one of those things that gets talked a lot about, but it's actually a good business decision. Why wouldn't you want your best people training and leading your best people? The real transition though happens, I think, and I think salespeople can make incredible managers and sometimes better managers than non-salespeople. All they have to do is switch their mindset to my employees are my customers. And if they were to treat their employees the way that they've treated their customers and what led them to success, your sales becomes inspiration. And you are now teaching people to follow you and buy whatever you're selling. It's just no longer a product.
It's empowering them. I mean, I've been in a lot of sales teams before, and I find that I've had a lot of bad managers. I've had a lot of good managers, and I find the good managers, there's a couple things they do, and you can speak into in your terms. I'm not a trainer at this, right? But I'm going to tell you from my view, right? Because it'd be a lot of fun. One, as a sales rep, I knew they were somehow like watching me. That was number one. And that's because salespeople will get away with murder unless they know they're being watched, right? Yeah. If they feel like there is what I call absentee manager, they're like, party, we're going party. They don't care. But if they're being watched, number one. Number two, they're empowering them, meaning when they come up against a problem, sales rep comes up against a problem or a challenge, they feel that their manager has their back or will support them in the challenge, right? They feel supported, because I think what a manager should be is it's an empowerment, it's a support, but also like a motivator, right? Yep. And I always think of what is it called? Military, right? And we just hired somebody recently and long time ago, a year and a half. And he's a great manager. And it's because he came from the Marines. Like, he was a Marine. So he was taught great leadership. He was taught that it's all about the troop. You know, if one guy's down, everybody goes down with them. We're all as strong as our greatest link. I mean, he was taught these leadership skills versus it's all on me, you know, who cares about them? So am I on the right track? And I'm saying words like that make sense to me. Tell me how management today, and how do you teach that?
I don't. So the core principles of management are actually pretty easy to teach, and I think a lot of companies get that right. It's that leadership component that you're talking about, the care for people that doesn't get taught. And I mean, I've got an article that I face and stare at every single day from Harvard Business Review. It's written by a guy named Jack Zenger. And it says we wait too long to train our leaders. So I don't know that the difficulty is in how do you teach it. It's do you actually even teach it? Because everybody knows what the difference between a good boss and a bad boss is. And that's why there's 50,000 of those infographics that compare the two, and they get shared all over the place because everyone can recognize it. The issue is executing on those things. And the issue is genuinely, like, actually caring about people. Now, and that's tough to teach. If someone doesn't genuinely care about other people, they're going to be not great as a leader. You've got to, at some level, care about the people that you're leading. Yeah. And really, if I'm a business owner, if I'm an executive, if I'm about to promote a new manager, that's the number one core thing that I want to teach that person. Care about your people, find out what's important to them, and the rest kind of takes care of itself. And then I'll teach you the management stuff. Like, I'll teach you how to run a meeting. I'll teach you how to...
Let's do that. No, that's great. Let's just... right now, I want you to teach everyone listening, how do you run, and I'm going to put in quotes, a non-boring freaking slice my throat meeting. Right? Because I have to run meetings now. And I feel so bad because I'm like, I hated meetings. I really hated meetings. So here I am running meetings, and I have this back in my head like, oh my God, they're probably dreading this. I'm really sucking at this. And they're probably rolling their eyes at me. I can't see them because I can't see them right now behind the video screen. They're probably rolling their eyes. Oh my God. So how do you do it? Like, can you walk us through that? Just like, how do you productive and not boring?
Yeah, and it's relatively good timing because on my show, so every Monday on the podcast, I go through different fundamental of leadership, and I've been spending the last few weeks at the time of this recording talking about meetings. And so for starters, they are an incredible opportunity to both inspire your team and to fail horribly, because it's one of the only times that your team members or your employees are actually solely paying attention to you for a long period of time. Other than that, it's just small interactions or one-on-one conversations.
They're not paying attention to me all the time? I'm the boss.
No.
I'm just kidding.
No, but you put them in a room or you get them on a conference call, and aside from having their smartphone out, which if you're doing conference calls or video calls, those are very difficult because no one pays attention.
Yeah, because they're doing this like, what? Yeah, exactly.
But let's assume. I think that's a good rule in and of itself. If you're going to run a meeting, don't allow cell phones in the room, or everyone turns their cell phone off because it's such a distraction. But outside of that, all they're doing is listening to what you have to say. So if it's good, fantastic. But if your message and your delivery sucks, they're walking out of that meeting talking about you, thinking about you, and that's a reflection of your company. So You have to understand,
Snicker. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I'm making fun of it, but it's so just like, that was horrible. Oh my gosh, she's
it happens.
Stupid.
I mean, I've done that. I mean, I've walked out, and within like 30 seconds, I'll say, "Well, that was a waste of my time."
Right. I don't want to be that boss. I don't want to be that boss. I don't want to be that like, oh my god, that was such a waste of my time. I could have had breakfast. Yeah, or something.
Yeah. So here's my, I guess, 2 core tips.
Okay.
Avoid meetings, if you can. And implement one-on-one meetings with your team on a more regular basis. Now, it depends how many direct reports. I think if you've got more than 5 direct reports, it's going to be very difficult, and maybe you should have some more reliable people on your team that you can delegate more to. But if you're sitting one-on-one with somebody, they're going to pay attention. You let them run the meeting. It's their agenda. Now, you have to have a little bit of structure to it, but they come in, and the first thing you do is you talk about, hey, what's going on in the current task? You spend a little bit of time there, and then you talk about whatever's really important to them. If you do that on a regular basis, then all your group communication can be really short. Because if you know what everybody is going through on a one-on-one basis, then maybe you bring your team in once a week, and you're like, all right, here's the announcement, here's what's changing, here's what we're doing this week, here's your assignments, or but it's very, very quick because you know they're going to talk one-on-one. So that's my first tip. Do one-on-ones instead of full meetings.
That's a good tip. That's a good tip.
Yeah. Well, I learned about it. There's a guy named Ken Blanchard, and I went to a situational leadership course.
I know Ken. I met him back in 2007 or 8. Great guy. Yeah.
He's fantastic.
He's awesome.
Unfortunately, he wasn't facilitating the training, but it was his course. So I have not met him. I'd love to get him on my show sometime. But anyway, part of their training involves teaching one-on-ones, and it was the concept of your team member brings in what's important to them to talk about. And I thought it was brilliant. But the second thing is to, again, still in the spirit of not running meetings, just do quarterly meetings and make a bigger deal out of them. And so prep is important. Figuring out one message and one theme that you want to convey related to like culture. So that could be something like, hey, this quarter is going to be about servant leadership, and everything I talk about is going to be intertwined with servant leadership. Or maybe it's about passion, or maybe it's about what if, or maybe it's about a sales goal. But you pick one theme that you tie everything together so that you can trigger performance in your follow-up after. But you break things up. So I think in a good quarterly meeting, you should have at least 2 to 3 videos. People love videos. They watch videos, and you add some music behind a motivational video, and you're going to hit that like emotional chord as long as it's relevant to what you're talking about. And then heavily weight everything you talk about to what's important to your team. And this goes into just leadership. I think should be leadership 101. But if you understand the goals of each individual on your team, then you structure all of your meeting around them achieving their goals. And that includes like overall company performance, because hey, here's where our company's at right now. Here's where the business is. If we hit this level, guess what that means for opportunities? And if our team performs at this level, here's where we're at. Here's where we need to be. Guess what that means? Because I know that you want to buy a house, Sally, and in order to buy that house, you need to hit your bonus, or you want to get promoted, or we need to be able to have a good year so that the stocks do well, so that you can have the finances to buy your house, or you want to travel. Well, hey, if you're spending all your time worried and behind, you're going to have a difficult time taking time off to go travel. So if you can tie...
So you're tying it back to their own personal goal.
Yes.
So, okay, yes. I got it. So tying it back to your own personal goal, to their own personal goal, like they want a house, or what's like I have someone who works with me or works for me who, you know, they have a child that's going through some medical stuff. I mean, so it's like they have a huge motivation. And to just discuss that, really be open about like what's there for them or what's going on with that, and like see how we can help with the medical expenses by increasing it. You know, like I think there's just something you can always do to help people go to the next level with their sales. So do you always bring it back to sales, or is there like a...
It depends on the business, right?
Okay.
Because sometimes your customers are internal. If you're part of a large organization, I mean, let's say your accounts payable as a team, it's like there's not really sales targets. You're going to have certain metrics But I mean, I'm a believer that everybody on every level of every organization should have some like number or specific data point for a performance metric. Not because I'm a micromanager, but because as an employee, I always wanted to know, hey, how do I get promoted? Or how do I grow my, or like, what does good look like? Because I don't want somebody, at my annual performance review being like, oh, here's what I think. Your quality was good. Well, how do you define good? So depending on what the team metrics are, that's going to be the goal. And if you're in sales, well, that's ultimately what it's going to be.
So
and
if it's not in sales, what would it be the metric? I mean, let's just talk about it for a second. So if it's not sales and they're, I don't know, they're nurses or something. I don't even know. What's not in sales? A technology, I guess. What kind of metric do you put it to?
So you could put it to amount of rework. So if you're producing a product, how often is the product having to come back and be reworked on?
Oh, that's a good one. So how much it goes out and comes back?
Yeah, okay. You could do how much product is actually getting out the door, which is still going to end up being tied to sales, or how much product are you going through and evaluating depending on what you're doing. Customer service is a great one, because ultimately when you think about it, every company, it boils down to sales. If your company isn't selling products and making money, there's going to be no opportunities for anybody who's in the organization.
That is very true. So would you say customer service should be tied to sales?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, because you're and you want to look at a couple things. You want to look at your attraction of customers. So how many new customers are you bringing on? But you also want to think about like retention, repeat customers. And almost any level of your organization is going to have an impact on customer service, even if the customers are internal. Because, if you can help your team see like the big picture, and I'm thinking like a major corporation where you don't actually even talk to a direct consumer, your ability to perform your job at a high level impacts other people's ability. And eventually down the line, there's a customer. So you can always tie yourself, are we giving the project managers everything that they need, or are we giving accounting everything they need to serve customers? So I think there also needs to be an emphasis on like where does our team fit in the grand scope of the big picture, because IT and accounting and sales and the custodial staff, like they all look at the business very different. But if you can help them understand that, hey, you're in the custodial work. Guess what? If we have a clean, safe workplace,
right,
we can be a more productive, happier company, more attractive to customers. And as we expand, we get more floors and we get to hire more people. And, the list goes on.
Let's talk about metrics for a second, because, as a customer service, how would you train, or how would you think about it? So if I'm a customer service person, let's say, how would you say to me, okay, I'm going to tie your entire bonus or whatever to number of sales? And she's going to be like, but I don't even do any of that, like I answer the phones. How would you do that in a way that she doesn't feel like that's not my department, or I'm the receptionist, like I don't know, how would you do that, and how would you train people to do that?
Yeah, again, it's going to, I guess, a little bit depend on the business that you're in. Most major organizations are running through, they're called voice of the customer surveys, where customers are surveyed. And they give feedback, and it's all about net promoter scores. So you can get data and tie performance to those metrics, even if the person is not directly customer facing, because it's still based on team. But if you can break down the tasks that create customer service, you can typically put them into a did you do this or did you not do this? What you want to stay away from, and what's tempting, especially in customer service, is be like, well, if I hear good things from the customer, or if I hear bad things, I'm going to make my judgment based on that. And we all know that it's easier to complain than it is to say great things. So you got to be very careful. You do want it to be a metric, but there are certain things you can track. Now, if you're in a very small business and you've got a receptionist at the front, there's only so much you can do. You're not going to be like, all right, you need to make 15 phone calls a day to customers. Which actually, you could do that. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if your dental office called you and just said, hey, just want to see how you're doing?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. You know,
That'd
in
be
fact,
incredible.
recently, I found a dentist online, and I did a bunch of research on him, and then I put my name and information for someone to call me back, and it took them 4 days, 5 days, and then supposedly this guy's like amazing. I haven't even met with him, and I said, you know, yeah, let's just set an appointment, or like a consultation, just to talk to him, but not really an appointment yet. And I said, you know, what times do you have next week? And she's like, oh, next week. Like, I need to look out 6 weeks. I was just like, why do I feel like I'm at Sotheby's? You know, this is like the Mercedes or the Rolls Royces. I'm like, oh, excuse me. I go, well, I'm not setting an appointment. I just want to have a consultation. And so she was very snippety. So I'll probably be telling the dentist that. But I thought to myself, wow, like, she didn't have to do that. And so even though I really want the service and I read online and he sounds amazing, I'm still a little edgy about it because she was just the customer service, whoever she was just kind of rude about it. You know, so I think it really does make a difference whoever's answering your phone, who's ever the voice of the company. But the thing I have for you is, how do you manage that? How do you train that? If someone's coming to you like, look, I'm a first-time manager. I've never done this in my life. I've been a sales rep for 10 years or 5 years, and now all of a sudden they've made me a manager. Jamie, help me. How do I do this? How do I manage? I didn't have sisters and brothers growing up. I wasn't part of a sports team. I've never managed anyone in my life. That totally freaks me out. So how do I manage this? How do I do this? What would you say to them?
So the best piece of advice, and ironically, I got this the first time I became a manager. The company I was working for, they sent us down for sales training. It was a sales organization, but there's this guy who had been with the company since it started, and he taught the most simple lesson that if managers would just do this, it would like change the world.
Oh my gosh! Okay, let's do it. What is it?
Grab your new employee and attach them to your hip and show them how to do it. And when you're doing that, show them how doing a good job impacts them personally. If you can help an employee see the correlation between performance at work and personal achievement, you're going to build loyalty and engagement. But it's not just a matter of saying, if you do X, I'll pay you more. If you do X, you can do this. You have to literally show them. And I call it shoulder to shoulder, because you need to literally be side by side. So if you hire a new receptionist, it's not so much as being like, go be a receptionist, you know, like go do what you need to do. It's like, hey, let me show you how to answer the phone. I'm going to answer the next one. And let me show you how to do one of these calls. Now you do it and show me how. And you actually coach by doing it with them.
But how do you do that if you have a virtual company?
Well, depends what you're doing, but I think you can still do that.
How? Like right now I have someone I'm working with. She's in the Philippines. She's in a different time zone, and I would love for her to be right next to me so I can show her what I'm doing. Right?
Yeah, but
I don't have.
I mean,
yeah. So how would you? I guess, you know, if you had a client, it's like, we have 5 people or 10 people or 15 people across the country. How do I manage them? And they're not in the office with me, I can't tap them on the shoulder and go, "What are you doing?" You know what I mean? So how would you do that?
Yeah. So one of the cool things we have right now is access to pretty incredible technology.
Yeah.
Now, when you deal with time zones, there's going to be some sacrifice there. If you've got I don't know, at someone on the other side of the world and it's 3 a.m., maybe that's worth it, because if you show someone how to do it right the first time, and they can figure it out, it's worth that sacrifice, because you don't, again, think to rework. You don't have to redo things if they're done right. But, I mean, hop on, what is it, Zoom? Hop on Skype, do conference calls. I mean, you can do a 3-way phone call where you loop the person in and be like, hey, I'm going to show you how I talk to a client. Like, you can do all of these things. Even for tasks, I mean, you can record yourself doing something on a screen, create a video, and send a screen share video to somebody. So there's some incredible things. That being said, I'm also going to just recommend that anybody who runs a virtual team, I've not spent a ton of time studying it, but there's a guy who has, his name's Kevin Eikenberry. And he wrote a book called Bud to Boss, which is about transitioning into leadership. But I think he's just coming out with a new book or new courses just for remote leaders. So I haven't read it yet, so I don't have all of his insights. But that's what he's been studying for the last year and a half. I'm gonna also say, listen to whatever he has to say.
Okay.
This is probably pretty good.
So let's go back. So I apologize. Let's go back to you and managing. Or who do you work with now? What's your ideal client?
So companies typically, but not necessarily. So I work with individuals that are, I'll say, just highly ambitious, want to grow their careers and get promoted. So I'll connect with them one-on-one, and then I create like online training programs that people can take individually. That being said, ideally what I end up doing is sitting down with either a business owner or a general manager, and when they're about to promote somebody, or they've just promoted somebody, or someone who has high potential but struggling, I typically go in and do a couple, like if it's in person, do like some like maybe like a group presentation on, hey, here's the fundamentals, figure this out. But it's all about accountability. So it ends up being one-on-one coaching with a certain number of people. Now there's a certain limit to scalability there. That's why I also do the online stuff.
Yeah.
But essentially that's, I guess, my target client. My secondary target client, and this has actually happened recently because I didn't really understand how critical this was, but there's so many entrepreneurs that start their own business and they've never actually managed someone before. And so I mean, that's a huge focus of mine, to just like, hey, like, what do you do when you're hiring your very first employee? And so I just created I haven't just created a course. I'm waiting on some equipment to finish it. But a course on Udemy all about hiring that literally walks people step by step. How do I know when I need to use a recruiting agency? How do I know when that's a waste of time and money? How do I actually know if it's a good business decision to hire? How do I know how to interview? And so I walked A through Z through the hiring process, because it's difficult. Like, what do you do? Like, I spent 8 years in a recruiting company. I know how to recruit and hire people, but if you haven't, if all you've done, maybe you're an IT expert creating products and you got this software solution and all of a sudden you need 2 employees, how do you go find them? How do you know if they're good?
Yeah, that's really true. How do you find really good employees is a really big one for entrepreneurs. I mean, 100,000%, right? So, I mean, are you teaching people like how to hire, how to sift and sort through that process? Are you giving them like structures?
Yeah, I'm not teaching recruiting.
Okay.
Just because I think there's a lot that goes into it. I may at some point, he's like, how do you spend 6 hours on LinkedIn? How do you cold call potential candidates? I'm not really going into that. I'm going into the fundamentals of like, are you looking at where could this person be? Because it's really easy to be like, I'm going to hop on, ZipRecruiter or Monster or Career Builder, and I'm going to spend $500 on an ad and hope it works.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll teach you how to create that job description, that job posting, but I'll teach you how to like go through the different steps to be like, all right, how do I drive referrals? Like, what if I know this person? What if the best employee is best friends with our receptionist? Or what if they're at a local association? What if they just graduated? Like, where can you look before you even consider, spending money or hiring a third-party recruiting firm? But if you need to go and headhunt somebody, I mean, you should probably just get a professional to do that. Right. And again, I worked for a recruiting company for a very long time. For the high-level, very difficult roles, me being good at my job and spending 40 hours a week on it, 60 hours a week, it would take 5 days to find the candidate.
Wow.
What business owner, what entrepreneur has 5 days to go do that? So if you, that's the amount of effort you need to put in, pay somebody. It's going to cost you $10,000 to $20,000. But if you got to think about what's the cost of not hiring that person. And I also talk about that because if you're going to spend $60,000 to hire somebody at a if you're going to spend $60,000 to hire somebody, including their salary, to solve a $60,000 business problem, it's not worth it.
Right.
Because you're ending up like flat. Like, you want to spend $60,000 to make $100,000, make $200,000,
Right.
So there's a lot that goes into hiring.
There's a lot. Finding the right people is critical of every company, I think. And so I'm really excited. So I just want to kind of wrap it up. And where can people find you? And then who's your market for that? So where can they find you? What's your website?
It is yourbestmanager.com. Super easy.
Yourbestmanagers.com. And who should go there? Is it first-time managers, people that are individuals, or is it teams saying, hey, who should go there?
Yeah, first-time managers and HR professionals and business owners, typically. So if you are responsible for the development of managers or leaders, you should go there. The website is tailored to first-time managers, to the individual. But I mean, you go to the website and if you're like, yeah, this would make sense for my managers, then you're in the right place. If you go there and you're like, this stuff sucks, then I don't know, go somewhere else.
I love that. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. That was great. Yourbestmanager.com. And just one last question before we go. How did you get started doing this? Like, how did you all of a sudden go, I'm going to build a business on training? Were you a manager for a period of time?
Yeah. So I managed people for about 5-6 years. I wasn't very good. I developed the same way most people do, trial and error. Hey, I'm going to try this. And, that didn't work. The first 3 people I had on my team left within the first 9 months, so I was not good at it. But then I for starters, I figured it out. So I ended up having a couple really successful years. And then I got to a point where I was in sales, and everything I did ended up being sales. And I wasn't doing training anymore, wasn't doing management even anymore. It was like, go make more cold calls, go make more cold calls. I was like, I'm not enjoying this. So I decided at that point, I want to do something where I'm doing training. And the first thing I thought of was maybe I'll train recruiters. But through my experience recruiting, I didn't actually do that much recruiting. My team members did. But what I did do was I consulted managers on who and how to hire people, how to performance manage them, how to retain them. And I mean, I was privileged to work with some of the largest companies in the world, Fortune 100 companies, mid-market firms. And I was like, I know a lot of people within management. And then I was like, but no one's going to take me seriously. I look like I'm 12. And even though I've got almost 10 years experience, so I decided I'm going to start a podcast where I'm going to interview the world's top leadership experts and learn while I teach.
I love it. What a great model. That's a great model. I think everyone can learn a lot from you in doing that. And I love your website, yourbestmanager.com. And, of course, your podcast, which I was on. So you can check that out at Your
And
Best
you did
Manager.
great, by the way. We had a good conversation.
We
You haven't
did.
heard it. At the time we're recording this, you haven't heard it yet, but it's good.
Yeah, it's coming out now. It's already out by the time this is being released, I'm sure. So you can go check it out at iTunes at Your Best Manager, and then put in my work name, Heather Havenwood, and just go listen to my interview because it was awesome. I actually remember that day. It was actually a lot of fun. So you're a great interviewer and interviewee, both sides of the mic, as we call it here in podcasting. And I just want to say, I love what you're doing because I think this is one big huge piece in the entrepreneur and business world that people become entrepreneurs, but they don't know how to be great managers and vice versa. And we just hire people because we like them, not because they're really good at what they do. So I love what you're doing. This is really amazing. It's very well needed in our world today. And just keep it up. So you can check Jamie out, yourbestmanager.com. This is Heather Havenwood with The Win. Check us out at heatherhavenwood.com.
Thanks so much.